Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies, and this video is on Censorship Always by Manly P. Hall, an article taken from Horizon, Volume 1, Number 10, June 1942. Control by one-man rule and hodgepodge prejudice. Censorship Always. Only in this country and one or two others can thoughts be expressed about censorship without the thoughts being censored out. The idea behind censorship is that you can change meaning not by changing the material, but by deleting part of it. That is forever being done to the Bible by the theologians. For you can read half a verse and make it mean one thing, or read the whole verse and make it mean the opposite. The whole chapter can then, of course, be read by the theologian, which will give him something no one knows anything about. But probably the most important censorship in our nation is censorship of the press. Only in time of war are we supposed to have any, but we always have it. That it is self-imposed doesn't matter. It's censorship just the same. Basically, it is controlled by the policy of the newspaper, gauged to some angle on the political economy, or a specific international slanting. Some newspapers choke over ever saying anything nice about Russia. Some grow choleric at the slightest suggestion of civilization advancement by any deal but the old deal. And never, of course, must anything appear that might reflect upon an indiscretion of a business executive who has it in his power to withdraw advertising positively into the wastebasket. Must also go anything controversially disadvantageous to general community interest. That might be, say, an article covering research results that deny citrus fruits are essential to balanced diet. Can you picture that being published in California or Florida newspapers? There's also the other swing of the censorship pendulum, which gives a stick of type to an important legislative proposal to make room for a splash display of a news item that has popular appeal. The latest juicy murder story which will heighten the day for the populace at a breakfast table reading, an item about someone's private life having no concern whatever with a public action, which is the supposed basis of news, is considered these days very choice literary fare, for snooper columns have a large and devoted following. In major matters of world importance, the news presentation is almost invariably dominated by the newspaper's particular policy, for or against what its owner has decided should be the national attitude. Items are played up or played down, with the result that a vast number of newspaper readers are insufficiently informed on great trends which sooner or later are to enter into and influence their individual lives. In radio, the censorship is both bad and practically blanketing. Before a program is put on the air, it is dissected, it is torn to pieces. The squint of disapproval falls first on anything that might be in the smallest degree controversial, for the sponsor is set out to sell soap, and he is not going to offend anyone, but please everyone, so he thinks. This man who pays the bill is given autocratic powers. Let him but take exception, and what he says goes out. There is no recourse in the unbelievable situation which allows absolute rule to the advertising dollar. Although radio stations operate solely by virtue of a government license which allows them use of the air channels specifically in the public interest, convenience, and necessity, a portion of the radio programs are not sponsored. These are gifts from the owners of these stations, or the networks, and really are the only leg they have to stand on in a show of confirmation to the public use to which their stations are legally required to be put, under the clear statement of purpose of the government license. Are such programs censored? Practically all of them, by the owners of the radio stations. It is entirely their decision whether anything educational, say, stays in or is deleted, and how they listen to narrow-minded minority groups, on the basis also that it is of more consequence not to offend than to educate. The prejudices of 300 people can result in killing off discussion of a subject that 100 million would like to hear. Freedom of American speech is a myth. So far as radio is concerned, the dollar talks. Broadcasting's censorship is suspended only when decision is reached that the program is in a presented form to which nobody will object. That's the aim. Its realization can be achieved only in presentation of the one thing no one can object to, and that is silence. In no place is censorship more overworked than in the motion picture field. The distinction here is that just about everyone takes a hand in a sort of free-for-all of democracy's likes and dislikes. Each of our states has its own sovereign rights, and the Will Hayes office has to keep a staff of people constantly employed in finding out what each will permit to be shown in the way of motion picture entertainment. If you think that because a picture is shown in New York, it can be shown, of course, across the river at Newark, you are mistaken. Or that a picture acceptable to Illinois is per se okay to Pennsylvania. The state censorship boards work independently, are completely authoritarian within their own domain. Local boards have an additional say-so. Mr. Hayes is delightfully termed a Caesar. The fact is, his decisions are limited to telling you the other fellows won't let yous. He gets a synopsis of a proposed motion picture when it is still in the writing stage. His office reads it, alert to geographical apportion sensitivities, and back comes some such report as this. Picture as descripted can be shown in Paducah, but cannot be shown in Oshkosh. Eliminate for New York, scene 2. Put it back in for Missouri. Appended list of changes and deletions required by Illinois. None of these required by Louisiana. So goes the report on and on. When you go to a movie and feel sorry for yourself, reverse a little sympathy for the people who had to form and conform it to the way it appears on the screen. If you cannot picture basic economic and sociological problems, the screen situation in regard to foreign nations is even more bewildering. If a character is shown eating snails, that belittles France, where they love snails, but American audiences don't know that. If the comic Swiss yodeler cracks on high C, it might bring about an international incident with the Swiss democracy. A slithering Turk, very bad. The neutrality of Turkey might be imperiled. If it's a Raja or a potentate of India, the picture will get by only if it is historical, no fiction allowed. Grave are the problems of crime and villainy. A crime committed last week cannot be shown, but one 200 years old is all right. Wait 200 years. A classic such as The Birth of a Nation could not be made today. It would injure someone's sense of delicacy. And today your villain must not be a foreigner, unless it's an historical picture. All fictional blackguards are to be 100% Americans. Motion picture dialogue goes to under microscopic censorship. Some of the words we use do not, as colloquialisms, mean at all the same thing in England. They might even mean something slightly off color, and if there's a wedding in your picture story, it cannot be shown in England. As a sacrament of the High Church, a wedding can reach the screen only via newsreel. American screen life under public men must ever remain exceedingly pleasant, for unpleasant things cannot be said about the doctors, nor the lawyers, nor the judges, nor members of Congress. They must all remain true blue, and no remarks please about consequent artificiality of story. It's a federal matter if you show a postman being robbed of a bag of mail. Yes, some censorship is federal, some is state, some local, some nonsensical. The idea that anything to be presented broadly to the public can be developed so that it does not offend anybody is a marvelous notion. To really avoid criticism, the removals would have to include anything unpleasant to every group in the country, and that simply makes no sense. One important privilege basic to democracy is that if you can express your idea, so can the other fellow express his with equal freedom. The actual situation, stated realistically, is this. A story that can be published in a newspaper cannot appear on the screen, but its availability to either has nothing to do with whether radio will permit it. I have said elsewhere that some increase in common knowledge of history might serve very useful ends. Historical circumstances as they are rewritten for the screen usually wind up with a lawsuit being attached to the movie presentation, and particularly is this so if the story's basis is biographical, and the motion picture industry pays off because it cannot stand publicity. Instead of the weird state of affairs things have come to, censorship should concern itself with that which is detrimental to public morals, to deletion of that which offends the sensitiveness of the majority, which in some detail could be expressed in a nationally applied code, subjecting material to 500 or more private opinions, as is the case with a motion picture, to a one-man advertising oracle as in radio, or leaving all to the political basis of a newspaper's proprietor, will continue us in the present result of censorship, which is petty, personal, low, and mean, instead of broad, general, and wise as it should be, when the people are finally awake to the system which today influences them out of a normal attitude towards something and switches them over to an opinion that will be profitable to the individuals in dissemination control. The demand will arise for censorship on a basis of honesty and common sense. Condensed from a public lecture. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.